Alright gang, and today we have a 2v2 Battlecast. The dreaded rise of the Strigoi Ghoul King. We have a pretty fun one here for you. This was one of the ones from our earlier, what's it called, streams. We have, as you can see, the army started already going to get hit and knocked apart. With this one, with kind of a thematic role here. A lot of crypt ghouls in the very front. We have a lot of... crypt horrors and crypt ghouls in the front line. We have some Vargeist. We have the feasters in the dusk. You know, your typical damage dealer, but with poisonous attacks, and stalk as well. So they're going to be really good against kind of your chaff type infantry. But then we have in the back, we have the Mortis engine as well. But I wanted to go some carrying rates, something a little bit different, so I did stick with them. And on top of that, we have the mighty Strigoi Ghoul King. Not a very common pick when it comes to vampire counts, but I am squaring off against a really nice formation of Empire here. Really strong front line, predominantly of chaff units, but these spearmen are going to be pretty hard for my crypt horrors to deal with. But they shouldn't be a problem for the crypt ghouls. 2 units of great swords in the back, a strong line of bowmen, and then some silver chevron mortars, which is a pretty interesting choice. Then we have units of flagellants and halberdiers with some cav on the flanks here, Reiksguard and Reiksguard. So that should be pretty interesting, as I have no cav. My ally decided to give me some orc boy big guns, so that's always a big boon. But on the other end of the battlefield, we have also an equally as nice formation of dwarves, already getting just sundered to hell and back by the hammer of Gork on the downfield over there. But he's got an organ gun just going wet and wild in the back. A strong front line of warriors with some long beards on the flanks, and thunderers in the back line, as well as some obviously some good long beards. Those are the slayers. So long beards over on this side over here with some grudge thrower. I thought it was the hammer of Gork for a sec, or the goblobber. But then my orc ally has quite a strong army. A lot of variants here. A lot of orc boys. 3 units, I think, maybe 4. 4 units of orc boys. He does have 2 units of only two units of black orcs. But then he's got some savage orc R's in the back here, some savage orcs over here, or wherever they are. They're somewhere around here. Maybe I'm lying. Aha! It would appear that I am full of shit. There we go. Savage orc R boys. And then the rusty errors. You know, you can't leave those boys at home. And then some more savage orc R boys. Then he went with the mighty Wurzog as far as his general goes. But we are squaring off against the mighty Ungrim Iron Fist, and just a general of Empire. Nothing strong or potent there. Let's get into the fray. We're already coming up to the first charge here. The mortar's already starting to rain hell on everything. Gotta get those crypt ghouls into combat. I kind of didn't make the best decision here with kind of breaking up these units, but I didn't want those crypt horrors to get quite as bogged down by the spearmen. And look at that! Look at those crypt ghouls just going all sorts of crazy. And again, these are the regiments of renown, so they look a little bit different, just strapped with bones all over themselves. Do it. Got these crypt horrors charging in here. Right into the regiment of spearmen, which is not a great choice. They are anti-large. More ghouls on the flank attacking over there. More over here with the Cairn race kind of filling in the gaps. So a strong frontline engagement here. We'll see how this plant pans out, Cotton. But then, of course, fill in the back line with some skeleton or some zombies. Or actually, I'm sorry, the Strigoi Ghoul King, I forgot. He does summon ghouls, which are pretty potent. Their choice of attacking these guys wasn't the best for me. As you can see, they are weak against armor, and no, these are great swords. They are armored. They would have been a better choice to choose the back line of archery, because then that would have helped the Vargwolf get less focused. But the Vargwolf went in right away for that Boris Top. I'm sorry, that is Boris Topbringer. I thought that was General of Empire. Again, that's like 2 lies I've given already, and we're at what? We're like 6 minutes into this. This is just hogwash. But we do have a strong engagement going over here as well. The archers are just to devastating effect. I always forget how voluminous the archers are when it comes to Greenskins and Beastmen. Like, look at that fury being brought down upon the Dwarf warriors. So there are so many archers because they don't do a ton of damage, but we will get some Skulder Guard action here. I wanted to get some focus in on this. Ooh, right in, right in. I'm never a huge fan of the Skulder Guard because I can't use them properly, I feel like, but it's always interesting to see them being used. But just getting plucked apart by some archery already, just very fast, very fast. Wurzog having some difficulty squaring off against Ungrim. His Mohawk of Doom going in for the kill. But we do have quite a large mass of clumped up infantry here between the Black Orcs and the Orc Boys, all trying to get in there. Let's take a look over here. We have Boris has been beaten down pretty heavily by the Vargulf and by the Strigoi Ghoul King. With him being on foot, he's a little bit easier to pick off, I'd say. As you can see, the blood-coated Vargulf just goes in for the kill multiple times. Knocking him around. A little slow-mo on this so we can focus a little bit better. So, we can see that I've been using the Cairn Wraiths to try to counter the charge of as much as possible of Reiksguard, to then get my Crypt Horrors in there to help beat them down into submission. That's kind of been going to various levels of success, but you can see his army's already had a little bit of an army rout here, and it's just now coming back from it. But with Boris now broken, it's going to be pretty hard for the Empire line to maintain against so much fear and terror causing units that I have brought to the table. Now with the Dwarf line, you can see that this has been just a pretty, if we get in pretty close here, we can see that it's been a pretty tumultuous frontline combat, really with no one kind of gaining or losing here. But of course now the Dwarves are starting to sally forth into the gap to try to put the sword to the archers in the back. But do keep in mind, you know, with Savage Orc R Boys, we still have a very strong melee attack unit on these guys. I mean, they're pretty competent melee fighters, even though they are archers. So that's the kind of the nice thing about Greenskin is, with Savage Orc RR Boys, especially with even with their normal RR Boys, you still have a chance of surviving in close combat a little bit longer than you would against, say, just these random little Night Goblin archers, which are like little tiny paperweights. But Ungrim is getting beat down pretty hard here as well. He was already the subject of quite a bit of range fire from the range units here. This flank over here is starting to buckle finally with the Dwarves, just barely holding on. And this one, same thing over here. We do have some Orc chariots that have pushed through the back of this line and are being used to devastating effect, because chariots are just like the #1 hard counter to Dwarves every time you see them on the battlefield. Well, maybe not the #1, but still pretty fucking good. And in my explanation, you can see that, in my explanation of the other side, you can see that this side has been going very well. Speed this up a little bit. Cairn Wraith's just getting tossed around. All throughout the air. The Empire army, though, sufficiently being beaten back, can now start helping out my... Oh, yes. Foot of Gork. Right into the center of all those firing lines. Damn. Whew. That Foot of Gork, as the more I use it in the sparing little times that I do use it, the more I realize how really potent it is against heavily congested amounts of units. Like, holy crap. Ungrim fighting one last stand against the Black Orcs and Orc Boys. Will the Mohawk of Doom make it? It's hard to say, but with that Mohawk, I think he's pretty much done for. Look at that death. Very anticlimactic for a Slayer King. The Empire army now completely routing. My forces coming in to join in the fray. Knock out what's left of the waning Dawi. Not much on the table here, but you can see both our armies have taken pretty significant damage. My Crypt Ghouls barely kind of hanging on. The Crypt Horrors are still in pretty good measure, with some being a little more beat up than others, which is surprising because I made the bold decision to charge them into some spearmen. The Dawi army starting to rout as well, and we have quite a Pyrrhic victory here for the Dwarves and the Greenskin. And we can see from the post-battle report, the Cairn Wraiths, even though kind of brought as a fun choice, still performed pretty well, I'd say. 82 and 54 at full strength, still, I'd say, kind of makes them a pretty worthwhile choice in this matchup. They're very rarely used well, I'd say, because the fact that their ethereal is great and their AP is great, but they just kind of, I don't ever really feel like I get as much use out of them as a troop choice, to be 100% honest. But you can see this one unit got completely pulverized, but we still got 93, 35, and 45 kills out of these Crypt Horrors. The Varghulf really was an MVP here. He kept Boris pretty locked down the entire fight, with the ghouls in the back just doing shit tons of damage against a lot of unarmored units. 133, 142, 69, 68, 14, not so cool. But the Strigoi Ghoul King also being an interesting choice. I'm sorry, I'm going to put this up against my opponent. The Strigoi Ghoul King also being a pretty interesting choice here, because I forgot that his Summon Dead actually summons up ghouls. So that's pretty damn cool. It kind of encourages me to try to use him a little bit more. In the tabletop, he's a little bit different. You know, he is a bit more of a melee combat expert, and he does a little bit more damage. He's the choice of army you would take him with. He works really well with. In tabletop, you can actually ride a Terrorgeist. That's really damn cool. So I feel like the application from this game to tabletop is just not the same. Like the Strigoi Ghoul King always feels like the weaker choice in my eyes. And if you guys know a really good time to take Strigoi Ghoul Kings, like, hey, you know, Strigoi Ghoul Kings always work really well against maybe dwarf opponents, or maybe what the hell they're called, Greenskin or Beastman opponents, because of the fear and terror mechanics, let me know. I'd love to know opportunities that Strigoi Ghoul King kind of does well in. But if we can take a look over here at the Empire units, I mean, shit, those greatswords ripped up. That probably was that unit of Crypt Ghouls that attacked them from behind. I didn't get to see which one this was in specific. But 123 kills off the Reiksguard is none too shabby. Probably pummeling through a lot of the Crypt Ghouls in the back, especially this unit probably. 46, 68 kills out of the Mortar, which is still pretty impressive in and of itself. Mortars are a pretty rare pick with Empire, I'd say. I think I chose them in a thematic build, and that was the only reason I chose them. In tabletop, they typically are chosen in lower point battle engagements, when you have like, oh, hey, it's a 750 point battle. Okay, I think a mortar is something like 120 points now. I can't recall 100%. So if you have played Empire, let me know. I know that a cannon is about just a little bit more. You get a lot more performance out of it, but a mortar is not that terrible in tabletop as it is compared to this game. So different applications. Smaller scale combat typically includes more mortars, but the crossbowmen, while an interesting choice, I still think were a very good choice, but it doesn't seem like they were able to be brought to bear pretty well. 13, 5, and 14. They probably could have gone down the line targeting one unit of Crypt Horrors to better effect, I would say. Especially the Halberdiers. I'm surprised they didn't get more kills, because they're a hard counter to a Crypt Horror. And we have not a lot of kills in the Spearmen, but the Lizardmen, blah blah blah, they're not Lizardmen, they're Spearmen. The reason that the Spearmen didn't get a lot of kills is because they were killing Crypt Horrors, which have a low unit count. So we probably see them doing quite a bit of damage here to my army as a whole from a powers perspective, but not from a numbers, obviously. Let's take a look at the other end of the board. Corbo Russ on the Bloody Hands did quite a bit of damage with his Orc Boar Chariots, 119 kills. We didn't get a chance to really focus on it, but he did a lot of flanking charges and a lot of rear charges with those Boar Chariots, really messing up the back line. And Wurzog dropping, I think, 2 total Foot of Gorks the whole entire combat. We got to see one of them, but in the very beginning, he does drop one around the same portion of that line, right into the back line there, right into all of his range units. But 104 and 64 kills out of those Black Orcs, very impressive. Now, we saw so much range damage coming out of the archers, and like I was saying, they don't do a ton of damage, even though they can put a lot of arrows in the air, but 30, 11, and 20, I'll take it. I'll take it anytime when it comes to archers, especially for Greenskin. And then the Orc Boys in the back probably would have been better with maybe Orc Biggins, I'm not sure. You guys can let me know if the Orc Boys were a better choice here just because he's fighting against Dwarves. I would have figured you would want more AP, but again, I'm not the Greenskin master. I clearly am not. But we have a Hammer of Gork doling out a good 107. Both factions' artillery was in the game for a long time. I think this was their Grudge Thrower was actually silenced by the Orc Chariot, but 25 and 5 kills, not a lot, but 107 is quite a bit, as you can see. And 22 kills out of the Skulder Guard, which is impressive as well, with 149 coming from Slayers. There's no surprise there, and 85 from the Peak Gate Guard and the Longbeards, which are always going to be, in my mind, like the units that just kind of like Hammerers, Longbeards. They always just kind of last the longest and do the most damage in the Dwarf army, I feel like, as far as just standard infantry goes, especially depending on your matchup. But they're just very stalwart. They're such a great like investment of point return value, I think. They're amazing choices. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this one today. This is kind of an older one, but it's still a really fun one. I really wanted to showcase that Strigoi Ghoul King because we don't really see much of them. We see too much of the other lords, and I feel like the Strigoi Ghoul King, it needed a little bit of love, despite the fact that it's just fuck ugly. But thanks for watching here today, guys. Got tons of lore videos coming out. I got some community casts coming this week. We are doing a live stream for the launch of the Norska DLC. So if you do want to, I'll be taking the day off work. I'll just be going ahead and streaming that the entire day for the most part. I'll start the front half of the day with Wolfric, and I'll end the back half of the day with Throg. If we get up, I want to say to 300 maybe congruent viewers, I'll be giving away the DLC for free for people that, for some reason, haven't pre-ordered Total War Warhammer 2. And on that note, I will also be doing a stream for Total War Warhammer 2 and giving away that game for free as well. So if you guys are around, I do encourage you to watch. But thanks for watching here today, guys, and have a good one and take care.